aid, which prolongs both the war and the suffering of the Palestinians in Gaza. But does it meet the standards of humanitarian law? Well, to discuss, we're joined now by Mukesh Kapila, former senior humanitarian official at both the UN and the Red Cross and the Red Crescent. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, sir. Good to see you on the programme. The GHF has been widely criticised, widely panned by the international aid community, especially by the United Nations. In your view, is it such a terrible system?
No, I think Gaza has had terrible suffering in the last several months. There is starvation, there is hunger, there is insecurity. And I think every effort deserves to be given a chance to succeed. And I think the people in the GHF are to be commended for their brave effort to try and ameliorate the humanitarian situation. And it's immoral and unethical to refuse to cooperate with any venture that might improve the conditions of the people of Gaza.
Why do you think they are refusing to cooperate then?
Well, I think it's a mixture of motives. It is, isn't it? Well, firstly, the UN and its associated agencies have had a monopoly of humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and they've done a good job when they were allowed entry, and a lot of aid that has been given, particularly during the ceasefires. But quite honestly, the needs are so great that other actors should be allowed to come in. And maybe the UN is feeling that this monopoly of humanitarian access to Gaza is being threatened. And I think that's wrong. I think we need more actors. We need all sorts of actors, and we need to flood the strip with aid from any direction and in any way, so to relieve the terrible suffering of the people.
And the point of this new system is to stop Hamas from stealing the aid and to essentially lock them out of the aid distribution system. It's not just Israel which accuses Hamas of stealing aid. The Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has as well. The aid agencies, on the other hand, say there's not enough evidence. What is your opinion on this? And has there ever been another situation in which a terrorist group goes in and steals aid like this and then sells it back to civilians?
Look, I've been in the humanitarian business for some decades in some of the world's most difficult war situations. And in my experience, looting and diversion of aid is common. And it takes part by both militant actors and also criminal actors. And they proliferate when there is insecurity and also when people are in such a terrible shape. So, yes, almost certainly Hamas has been diverting aid, and almost certainly the desperation of the people is such that looting is also taking place with and without criminal elements being involved. The answer lies in trying to actually open up the aid corridors, maximize aid coming in so as to reduce the incentives. Sure, some aid is bound to be diverted to this group or the other group. But to be honest, we have to look at the greater good. Even if some aid is diverted, even to Hamas, if the majority of the innocent people of Gaza are better served as a consequence of aid delivery, then it's a good thing. And I think the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation model is worth trying to improve the security and targeting of the aid so that less of the criminal elements and the militant elements can hold people hostage. So I'm all for trying to improve the foundation model and for the Israeli Defense Forces to provide better security so that aid can get through more securely to suffering and hungry people.
Israel argues as well that the UN's Palestinian arm, UNRWA, is just not a neutral actor. It supports Hamas and it's staffed by Hamas terrorists, or at least those who are sympathetic to Hamas. In your view, is it understandable that for Israel, the UN and especially UNRWA are just not neutral actors?
Look, it really is, gives me great grief to be even talking about this subject, because I have spent a lifetime working with UN agencies of different sorts. And as a donor, I was a head of humanitarian affairs in the British government and funded the UN system in its humanitarian operations. And UN people and UN agencies do a great job. But unfortunately, what has happened in recent years is that the political side of the UN and the humanitarian side of the UN have gone to bed together in a way that is most unhelpful. the problem is that the UN system has become too big to succeed. And the humanitarian side and the political side, their objectives have got conflated. I think it's right to speak up about the terrible things that are going on in Gaza, and it's right to try and bring an end to the conflict, and it's right for the UN to be involved in that. But every humanitarian actor of the UN agency, different types of UN agencies involved, UNRWA as well as the others, also getting into this act just makes the space too crowded. So I think the UN has lost its way when it comes to try and separate the issues that are involved here. And in the end, it is the poor people who suffer because they're held hostage, on one hand, to political and security objectives, and on the other hand, to humanitarian aid being used as a kind of instrument by both sides in terms of the progression of the conflict.
Mukesh Kapila, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, we can go down now to the